only into the 9,000 storage location, and it needs to be transferred. And once it's done, this number is
Exactly.
releasing.
That's my understanding, because it's the average time that needs to record the virtual goods receipt. For the
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, we can always just take a quick look at the job aid. Remember that, so that it tells us exactly what received means. But I'm thinking if this means anything, it has to be the time it takes from creating the virtual goods receipt and doing the physical goods receipt. So if I see received, I don't know, I could interpret that this is the ones that we've done a physical goods receipt for, while in transit, maybe we've done the virtual goods receipt for, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So three that already arrived in the handover location, we've done the virtual, and now we're waiting to physically receive them.
And we can, in the AWS, more specifics on these numbers.
Exactly. So I'm going back to that one.
Exactly. And then, because I played around a little bit with the data there, because as I told you, it took a little bit of time moving around. Most of you may know how BO, business objects, work, and even Umoja BI, so I'm not going to tell you, to many of you who are experiencing Galileo, how this works. But honestly, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to drag and drop some of the characteristics there. So once one of my recommendations, not only for this report, but for the rest, once you try on all the different reports that we're going to go through these 2 weeks, try first to get familiar with those, and then once you're familiarized, just save a particular layout that you are already comfortable with, and that layout, you save it in your favorites or in your own folder. And from there, you start launching the prompts. So it's already pre-populated, meaning that, for example, what I did for this particular report, it's to add the PO number, right? And only filter the number of assets in transit, right? We can see here that we have 3 assets in transit, the 3 of them with the same inbound delivery document, obviously with the 3 different asset master records created once the virtual goods receipt was created. And then we have a 50 document, the material document rare already created, okay? So in this case, I did filter by the ones in transit. I could have filtered out and put the ones received as well. And in order to do that, you have to work a little bit with the columns there. That's why you see a yellow funnel over there. But instead of just moving around now the different categories of elements, Brian, I think it's best to show how more or less looks. And this is straightforward, because if you click on the how is called, this blue box, this blue cube on the upper left panel, the one that shows all the categories here, exactly. There we can have, you see all the data that it's subject to be used in this report. Obviously, I did use the PO number, as you can see in the box rows, the PO number, the asset number, the delivery goods received of the material document, and the virtual material document for physical goods received. All of those items are present in the analysis number 2, right, in the big table on the right side. I put in the background the plant, the asset number description, but still, as Brian is scrolling down, he can even change his mind and do an analysis by, for example, the STO, whether there is an STO involved there, or whether we want to know the storage, eventually the storage location where these items will be, let's say, in terms of inventory, right? Unit of measure, and a lot of information. We just scroll a little bit on the top part, Brian. There are plenty of information in terms of the equipment master record as well. As you see, because as Brian said yesterday, an asset, it's at the same time a piece of equipment, and we have all the information related to the equipment master record on the planning plant, material type description. So you can drag and drop plenty of this category of elements into the analysis in case that you think it's best. Okay, this is just an example of a simple analysis that you can do by just dragging and dropping these categories of elements. And as I told you, if we do this live, it will take a little bit of time, because it takes, I don't know, 2-3 minutes or 5 minutes to wait and see that everything is put in place. but I think we can just save time and just show it to you, which is the layout that we came up with in just 2-3 minutes, and then you can replicate. That's an idea. I think it's best if you could just take a look at this report. I stored this screenshot in the presentation and just try to duplicate the same layout if this is the first time that you're going to use these reports. If you duplicate and you do it well, that means that you are starting to understand the navigation part in BI. And once you understand, then you can create reports on your own. So instead of sending to you exercises, I think it's best to share with you this layout, this analysis, and then you try to replicate. Obviously, the data will be different because from one day to another, we may have different, of course, transactions occurring. But the objective here is more or less to identify all those categories of elements and put it into the context of an analysis. Okay, this is, as I said, only for the virtual material documents for fixed assets. Because it's called the property management unit in New York. They are really keen on stewarding all these pieces of fixed assets throughout the life cycle. So they are really keen on understanding how long it takes the asset to be received physically in the mission, how long it's actually in the warehouse without being used, and how long it takes to be written off. So all those KPIs are embedded within the reports that we will see these weeks, and you can see that a lot of these reports are only devoted to fixed assets, because eventually, and I think from experience you guys know best than we do, it's the fixed assets at the end of the day are the bottom part of the iceberg, right? The part that we may not see, and in a liquidation part, we really want to pay attention to the items that are highly valuable and the ones that eventually can be, let's say, transferred or to another mission, or we can gain some money in terms of disposal by sale, right? So that's why you can see the goods received report only for fixed assets in this series of reports. So that's a little bit what highlight the different aspects that I wanted to highlight for this report, and I don't have any other specific bullet point to point out right now for this report. But I really want you to take a look at the presentation that I created in order to understand a little bit more how this report works. But as I said, nothing to do with the exercise that we showed to you before, because the exercise on the ECC is from a goods receipt perspective, how you put it in the inventory and how you move the items into the warehouse, regardless whether they are fixed assets or not. This report, it's only for virtual goods received or fixed assets.
Okay, thanks, Daniel. I think it's definitely a good disconnection from the whole exercise that we did that took 2.5 hours or maybe even 3 hours to do, only for the physical goods receipt. And I do want to talk about, now I want to jump in quickly into what the virtual goods receipt would look like and the couple of transactions that we would have to perform in order to receive virtually the goods. And I think this is a very good starter. And I think these BI reports are very important, not only for newcomers, but also, of course, for those with already some more expertise, because it helps you understand, where a mission stands before you start tackling transactions, right? It helps you see that you have 3 assets in transit, so yet not received in the system. It helps you understand if you want to see what actual 3 assets those are, what cost center they're linked to, fund center, PO, and everything in detail as much as you want, even the current APC as well of these assets incoming. So knowing that you have over $400,000 worth of materials coming in is very important, especially through during liquidation. So I think these reports are key. Now, let me know if I understood correctly, Daniel. So we want to share these reports the way they look with the students too, so that they can practice and try to achieve the same result.
Exactly. What I put in the presentation, these screenshots. So well, for the web intelligence, it's not so difficult because eventually you have only to populate a prompt, and then let's say the system pulls out this report. But more in the analysis workspace perspective, when these guys have the roles, just to try to replicate a little bit of what you see now on the screen by dragging and dropping some of these attributes into the rows, into the columns, and into the background, so we understand how you can navigate through the reports. And once you feel comfortable navigating, then I think you will be more comfortable to understanding what type of information you may need once you are deployed, right? Because now what happens here is that we are taking for granted that you already have the roles. It's not always the case, I think. BI 55 is not granted to all of you. Secondly, we may take for granted that you already know how BI works, and that might not be the case, right? So we really want to, we don't want to leave anyone behind. That's why we want to just show to you a little bit how this works. Put a little bit of the layout of something that we consider that is interesting, and then you try to replicate. And from there, we will be available for you in the post-training or during this training in order to help you and support you during this process of creating the reports. But it will be really nonsense. We'll take in 2 hours to show to you how to navigate, how to come up with a report if this is the first time that you are witnessing how the BI tool works, right? It really wouldn't have much sense. That's why we are devoting more time to the transactions per se that you will eventually do when you're deployed, rather than do an analysis of data. That's something that comes after, once you already are familiarized with the transactions themselves, right? So I think this is more intended to be replicated, and then we will support along the way once you do the reports, either during this 2 weeks training or right after, regardless whether you're deployed or not, right? So that's a little bit the idea. Right?
Perfect. Thanks, Daniel. And again, just a reminder, Daniel sent me these through the inbox in BI, but again, remember that these are here and available, as we showed on the first day, right, under the property management folder, okay? So we're looking at these reports here, and the ones that we were looking at, for example, the report 10, that's a web intelligence, would be this one right here versus the analysis workspace right here, okay? So these are the reports that you guys would have to,
and last, before I give you the final on the word on the virtual goods received, I think that for the perspective of the web intelligence part, is just to highlight, for example, if you go to the web now to the web intelligence report,
double click on this one.
No, the actual tab. Exactly. For example, you see that in general terms, all virtual goods received let's say to analyze in just, 6 months, 7 months, gives you a KPI of 52 days. Then you have a problem there, because how long it takes as an average to recognize a fixed asset or to record a virtual goods received of a fixed asset as an average time of 52 days. We have a problem there. So the web intelligence report will give you a little bit of an alert, will give you a red light, a yellow light, or maybe a green light in terms of the overall business process, and not only for the report number 10, but in general, the reports in property management. And then this analysis workspace, based on the information that you get in the web intelligence report, you will be able to dig in and to understand the trend and to understand what the problem is based on the analysis that you're performing. And from there, you can go to ECC or maybe give a call to the relevant person, the user that is not actually doing his or her job properly, right, when you're deployed. So it's, at the end of the day, it's a set of tools that we're giving to you that you will have to be using constantly and in parallel once you all understand the scope and the impact of all those tools, right? Now it's only day number 2, so we still have a long way to go. But once you digest and you're comfortable with the transactions, you will be understanding a little bit more how these BI reports may be used in a practical way once you're deployed.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Daniel. And that brings me back to what Angelo was mentioning before, right? Doing things properly in chronological order and in time. Then by looking at these reports, you'll have an idea of what you're about to face, right, when you're deployed in the mission. and see already before you arrive if you're dealing with a mission that has followed the process accordingly or is doing pretty much whatever they want at whatever moment they want. Okay, so you'll know what to face thanks to reports like these. Okay, so I can close this now. I'm going to close BI. I'm going to jump right back into our exercises here. Let me just close all of this. And let me look for, in this case, I have my cover page here for my physical goods receipt. I have the exercise that I want to take a look at later after before I send it to you guys for the physical goods receipt. And now I want to make sure that I take a look at the virtual goods receipt here too, okay, for my demo itself and also the exercise that we have prepared for you. Okay, so again, you'll see that the cover page looks very similar to the one that we were looking at before. Again, we're talking about inbound delivery, but this time virtual goods receipt. And again, very similar process. Okay, what we're talking about now in this case is to learn how to process pending virtual goods receipt transactions purchased from a vendor with a non-DAP Incoterm, meaning it could be Ex-Works, it could be FCA. Okay, and here's where we're talking about virtual goods receipt. Now, I know for those of you who are new to all this, virtual goods receipt and the difference between that and a physical goods receipt. We perform a physical goods receipt when the materials have arrived at final destination location, which is the actual plant, right? So we have the goods in front of us, like Nico was saying. You have even the opportunity for RNI to, well, even the opportunity, RNI's job is to do that, right? To verify that the goods that are received are the same ones that are in that piece of paper that you have, that the quality is fine. So at that point, we do a physical goods receipt. But in the meantime, for example, if we're talking about an FCA Incoterm or an Ex-Works Incoterm, the ownership of the goods that we're transporting to our final destination happens much before or much earlier than when they arrive to the actual mission. The UN may be responsible at the door of the warehouse, for example, Nissan, if we're purchasing goods from Nissan, or we may become responsible in the port, right, when the boat arrives or before the boat departs, depending on the Incoterm that we're talking about. So you perform a virtual goods receipt to state that the UN has become responsible for goods at a certain point in the transportation route. So if I put the boxes on top of a truck or on top of a boat, and that's my sole responsibility as a vendor to leave it there, then the UN has to prove that from this point on, I am responsible for everything that happens to these goods, right? So it's a way of saying, yes, I received the goods at this location. The goods look good, or they are as they told me they would be, but we're performing a virtual goods receipt. Then we'll perform a physical at the end. So it's kind of like doing the process twice once the goods are actually in our final destination location. Okay, so that's something we have to understand before we jump into the transactions. We also have the materials again, the plant and storage location. We have our roles, once again, with the passwords, and then take a look at the amount of documents that you will have to create. We give you two of them, inbound and PO, but you're going to have to come up with the material document 1 for virtual goods receipt, the STO. There's going to be an internal transfer here. That's where we're going to be using that storage location 9000, the one we saw in the PowerPoint on day 1. That was like sort of the cloud, right? It wasn't a storage location in inventory yet. And no fund center is actually responsible for these goods in that storage location. Okay, it's just somewhere to put them in the meantime, right? While the goods arrive. Then we have an outbound document that is generated because of that STO. Another inbound material document, transfer requirement. Again, I added the bin. If you guys want to create your bin, you can skip this step. And then a transfer order. Okay, so you see, if you perform all these activities, and I go back to what Angelo is saying, because when Angelo says it's true in this sense, right? When you work with this, if the person who's doing the first transaction messes up, imagine what's going to happen with the last one, okay, doing the transaction. So we need to be very careful at the whole point of the way. So now that you're doing every single step, you need to pay attention to everything you do, all the materials you create. Again, we have a list of reports, and then a summary of transactions, which, as you see, it's quite longer than the summary of transactions that you had in the first one. The actual exercise, here I can also zoom in. to maybe 125. Okay, for virtual goods receipts, similar. We have our job aids here too, user guides, login, everything all the way up to our very last page, which is 36 pages worth of exercise. Okay, so again, it's a long exercise. It has all its screenshots and important text here. But let's see what are the major differences. If you already noticed by the cover page, our major differences are going to happen starting from here all the way up, right? So we're going to start again, with our inbound deliveries like we did for physical, but we're going to be performing all these transactions in the middle before we finally do our physical goods receipt, our MIGO transaction, okay? Our final MIGO transaction. So let's go into Citrix here. Okay, I think I was logged out already, so I'm jumping back in. Again, I'm logging in through here, and this time I'm going to go and do it quickly in the sense of using my inbound and PO to go straight to the point. Okay, we already spent some time on the login, so I can skip through that quickly. Okay, remember the client and the user. Okay, back to our cover page. Make sure we're using the correct user, inbound coordinator. And how do I know it's the inbound coordinator? Because in the exercise, that's what it says as my first step, login as inbound coordinator, and the demo, that's what it says as my first step in the summary. Okay, so here you go. Let's add that one there, and we do Umoja 133. Okay, so what was the first T code that we used? VL06I, right, to see the list of inbound deliveries, right? For goods receipt, in this case, let's take a look at the list of inbound deliveries. We can remove the dates. Again, remember, we explained this morning, and what I want to do now is just go directly to my PO or inbound and copy and paste it. Sorry, when I work with OneDrive, this is what happens. Okay, there you go. If for some reason, every time I select something, it scrolls up. Okay, purchasing document. We're adding our purchasing document here. There's nothing really else I'm adding. Maybe I want to add the shipping point receiving plant, which in the cover page, again, it's still the same one we saw before, US00. I can do that, and I can click on execute, and here you go. Here is my inbound delivery. It's meant to arrive on the 15th of May. Okay, no problem there. And we double click on this. But now, what are the actions that I'm performing now? Okay, am I adding the actual GR date at this point? What information am I adding? Because this is not a physical goods receipt, it's a virtual goods receipt. So let's go back to our document body, and let's see. The exercise, again, will explain everything you need to do. So it'll tell us as a first action requirement, it'll tell you that what? So we display and we change the icon, and we do fill in the actual GR date with the corresponding date for the exercise as of today's date. Why is that? Because we're actually receiving the goods, even if it's not at final destination, we're receiving the goods. So the date that we add here is our actual receipt date, even if it's not at final destination location. So we're going to make sure we do that, and then I'll come back to this screen. Okay, so again, remember we click on the glasses and the pencil, and we add today's date as our receipt date, because today's date is the day that we're receiving them at the handover location. Fine. What else does it tell us to do in the exercise? It says that we should go to the header details, and I want you to keep this in mind, the hat icon here. Okay, remember we have one view, that is this one here, with the sort of, it looks like a mountain and the sun. If we click on the header, we have a different view of the same inbound delivery, okay? And what it's telling us in the exercise is to go to the shipment tab. And this is where we have this information we were looking at this morning with the Incoterms, right? So in this case, this could either be an FCA Incoterm or this could be an XWorks Incoterm. At this point, I don't know. How did I know that? Remember, we saw this morning too, quickly, ME23N. We can view the PO if it's not in your inbound, which it should be. And if I copy the PO number here once again, and I go back to my document, we just paste it here, run this, and what do we see? Under item details, I can check and see the delivery is for FCA Miami. Okay, so we know that the Incoterm is that one, okay, in the PO. Okay, so what does this mean now? And what are we filling in here? At this point, we're adding the a bill of lading too. And why are we adding that here? In this case, what we're adding now is the document that the vendor is giving us, right? For the let's say the handover of the goods. We're adding that information here as of now. Okay, we have that information because it's an FCA Incoterm. And what else is the exercise telling us to add, if whatever is important here? It also tells us the fill in the transit code with the freight PO, okay, and the bill of lading. Okay, so we understand this. At this point, when we have a handover location, who's taking charge of the transport of the goods is a freight forwarder, unless we're us as the UN, we're using our own transport to transport goods. I think we use more of our own vehicles during STOs than we do with shipments like these bought from a vendor. But in this case, what it's telling us here is the means of transportation area. We would have to define this means of transportation, which basically it's the only thing we have here. It's ZFPO, and that's for the freight PO. We would already have our freight PO number at this point. Okay, and this we added the freight PO number here, so we can add it. At this point, I can add anything I want because it's not really linked. Okay, we would actually add our freight PO number there. And this is the last portion that we have to add to our first inbound delivery, because in this case we're going to be working with 2 inbound deliveries, one up to handover location virtually, and then the second one, which is the one that we're going to use for the physical goods receipt. Okay, so we've added the actual receipt date of goods, because now at handover location we're responsible for these goods, and we've added both the bill of lading number, the bill of lading number, and the transit code, which is the freight PO. Okay, because now the freight forwarder is the one who's going to transport the goods to the final destination. We can go back to the detailed view that we have before. We can click on save, and we make sure that our inbound has been saved. Okay, what is the next step here? Now we go here for inventory management. And what we're doing here is the virtual goods receipt. Okay, so virtual receiving user of the inbounds, we're going to take a look at what we have to do now using the same T code. So maybe I don't even have to come out of this T code unless the cover page is asking me to log off. Okay, we do have a virtual receiving user, and I'm just gonna see, it's the same one as the one I'm using for the inbound coordinator, so I can actually stay logged in as I am. But again, making reference to what Angelo said, this is a different person doing the transaction. Even if it's you in the liquidation in the mission, make sure that you're doing things correctly. I do hear some background noise. I don't know if somebody wants to intervene, or it's just me and an echo in the background. Okay, I don't think anybody wants to jump in, or they would have done it by now.
Just one, Brian, just one thing, sorry. If you are always into a liquidation scenario, if you are mapped with the role of virtual receiving user, the system allows you to update any inbound delivery. So it actually, if you have this role, you can perform the inbound coordinator transaction also.
Very good. Thanks, Nico. So that means what Nico is saying is that now that I'm supposedly logging in as a virtual receiving user, if that were the case for a virtual goods receipt, I could have performed the action of the inbound coordinator. So the one I just did before, which was adding the GR date, the bill of lading, and the freight PO information, I could do it all in one shot. Okay, so I wouldn't have to log in and log out. I could still remain in my inbound as I'm doing here. Click on the pencil, add the actual GR date, move over to the header data, add the shipment as I did here. And then now would be our next step, which is the role of the virtual goods, the virtual receiving user. What we have here is the opportunity now to add the virtual storage location for all the goods that we're transporting. Okay, so these goods, if you take a look at it in the screenshot here, and I move over to the right, I'm going to do this slowly. You see the vaccine, paper, and all. The storage location that was added in the shopping cart is there. Okay, that's the final storage location when we do the physical goods receipt in Migo. But for now, since we receive them virtually, our storage location should be the virtual storage location. So each one of these storage locations should be changed to 9,000. And that will tell the system that these goods have been received into, let's say, this storage location, which is the one that we use for virtual goods receipts. Okay, and that's what the exercise is telling you here. All items into the 9,000 virtual storage location. And Nico, is that still you? I hear a voice there. I don't know if somebody wants to intervene. Okay, so we're adding the virtual storage location number there. And now, one of the things here that we saw in the physical goods receipt, in Migo, when we were doing the Migo transaction, we were selecting that, remember that serialization option? We were adding the serialization requirement during the Migo transaction. In the virtual goods receipt, and guys, you guys, for example, Nico, Angelo, Lucia, whoever is there and wants to answer this one. Basically, and what we're teaching in this exercise is at this point, for items that are serialized, right? If I'm looking at the computer and the X-ray machine, during virtual goods receipt, these items have to be serialized at this point. Is there any chance these can be skipped from serialization and be done in Migo transaction? Or if we're using, sorry, Nico.
At this level.
At this level, always.
We serialize at this level in order then it migrates the same data into inventory once we move into the original storage location.
Okay, very good. All right, just wanted that confirmation. Okay, so you see in the exercise here too. So we have here note serial numbers for serialized materials must be added at this point. Open extras in the navigational menu and click on serial numbers. Okay, and these serial numbers are created automatically. So let's do that. We go back here. We go to extras, which is up here. We haven't really used the navigational menu that much. We click on serial numbers, and it says here missing for material, okay, 12, because that's the one that maybe was selected. Okay, so what am I supposed to do? Select that line and go to extras and click on serial numbers for this one. Okay, and here you go. So basically, I think that we have the option here to add the serial number in this case. Okay, so let's see what the exercise tells us here. Create the serial numbers automatically. So you have a button that you're supposed to click on and then the green check mark. So let's go back here and say, okay, I'm going to create these automatically. And it creates them for the, I believe, 10 computers that we have. I think there's 10 computers. So there you go. All the serial numbers are created there with this button of creating them automatically. I click on the check mark. We're good to go. The only other item we're missing is the X-ray, right? The same thing. We do extras, serial numbers, and we do the same thing. Create the serial number automatically. There's only one X-ray, so only one serial number. Click on OK. And now we should be good to go. No serialization for alternator, vaccine. We're going to skip the whole packing information too at this point, just for the sake of moving through. And also in another 3 minutes, we have staff members joining us from HQ. Yes, Daniel, sorry.
Brian, it's just now that you said it, we had questions in the chat saying that should we at this stage perform the packing or it goes later? So now that you're confirming, yes, over to you.
All right, and good. I'm glad that they're mentioning that too, because let's think of the transportation management module, right? And this has been happening with some missions that have gone live with the TM already. And it's that if the packing is performed at virtual goods receipt level, it seems that they can't plan transportation. All right, there's some sort of a glitch there. So what's happening with in production is that they're skipping the packaging during the virtual goods receipt and they're adding it later during physical goods receipt. But as far as I know, and this also somebody, the experts can jump in and tell me, is this packing has to be done at this point, because when we receive the goods, we have to add the packing information here too. This is when we're going to receive the details of the packing information from the vendor. They should be added at this point. So really it's a glitch with the TM system, the fact that they can't plan transportation at this point. But they should do the packing details at this point, correct? I'm throwing a question out there to those that are listening. So, and this is the point where for virtual goods receipt, I have to perform the packing for these goods. I shouldn't wait for the physical goods receipt to do so. Okay, so I don't hear anyone jumping in on that one. Maybe it's a risky answer, but I think at this point we should add the packing information. What I'm saying is that with the TM module, there is a sort of a conflict, okay? And if we add it at this point, we can't plan transportation. But the packing should be performed at this stage. Unless somebody jumps in and tells me, no, it's okay, you can do it later on, I'm sticking with that, okay? And basically, now that we've added the virtual locations, now that we've added the serial numbers, at this point, what we do is we post the goods receipt, okay? So if we go back here, what we're doing is we're posting this virtual goods receipt. Okay, if everything's correct, it'll tell us that the inbound delivery has been saved. So 32027 has been saved, and we've posted this. We've posted the document now for virtual goods receipt. So we should have a document here that we need to take a look at and see where this document is created, where we have a document that has been generated. After posting, there's always a material document created. It just doesn't show in ECC at the bottom here. It shows me the inbound, but it doesn't show what I have just created by the posting, okay? So let's not make a mistake there. We can navigate directly to the PO from here, okay? So remember, ECC allows you to just double click on the document numbers. And if we have navigated directly, well, in this case, we're back in our inbound. So let me just do the open a new window and go to ME23N. And I'm going to add my PO here. Make sure I have the correct one. And once again, and this will be the last transaction we do because I know that the colleagues from HQ are joining in and we don't want to waste the valuable time that they're giving us. So again, under the item details at the bottom here, we'd have our purchase order history information, right? And under this purchase order history information for the PO that we're looking at, we'd have the material document number that has been generated from the virtual goods receipt.
Brian?
Mm-hmm.
Now that you said about the New York colleagues, I'm checking with Lara. She's at the same time checking with New York. Apparently, they are not logged in yet, so she will tell us once.
Yeah.
Oh, I think she's now online.
Yes, exactly. I was just now in contact with Viria, and Kirill should be already online. So as soon as you finish, we can pass the floor to Gams.
Okay, perfect. Well, at this point, what I want to do is maybe just, I'm going to see if I can copy this material document number and add it to my page here. Okay, well, it's not letting me do this. So let me just make sure that I take note of the material document number that I have here and go to this section. And that'll be the last thing I do. The thing is, I really don't want to rush through the rest of the exercise because it's not going to help anyone. So all I wanted to show you guys at this point is the virtual goods receipt posting, the material document that has been created. And now from there, we have to continue, right? From there, what has been generated in the system is an STO. So there's a transfer of goods from one virtual storage location to the actual other storage location, which is the one that we added during the physical goods receipt. So what that we have to tell the system, or what the system understands, is that there's a transfer of goods from one storage location to another. Okay, and I know it's a bit complicated to understand when you're new to all this, but that's what the system is now interpreting based on this material document that we have created. So that's what we have to process next, is the STO. Okay, so I'm going to leave this hanging. If we have time to cover this during another session, we will. If not, I'm sure that just by following the exercise, you guys will have more than enough info to perform the exercise here. So if the colleagues are ready, they can join in anytime.
Why you get 91? I want to see what you get wrong. What you get wrong?
Okay, so
yeah.
Hold on, let me just mute here. Sorry. I guess I hear a strong background noise here. Okay, that one's done.
Yeah, I'm just while I think Kirill joins, I am even Kinhui. I'm posting the evaluation form for the afternoon session in the chat for the information of the students. Thank you.
Okay, so no one has joined yet. Sorry, I had understood Kirill was already there, and I didn't want to make him wait.
Yeah,
colleagues, I'm here, and I believe Jack is here, and I think Virya. So whenever you are ready, we can step in.
Okay, so thank you, Kirill. So, and sorry, Jack. I think Jack is the person I just muted, Jack Howard. So I'm gonna make you a presenter. Sorry for that.
I think not a problem. In fact, it's I just wanted to say 3 words, but just to say we're happy to be participating in the session. My name is Jack Howard from the Global Asset Management Policy Service here in New York. You all know Kirill, Serafimov, and Virya Arisi, my colleagues and team members. We're very happy to have presented or have prepared some information. I think we're going to stretch it out over a 4-day period, and we have only a half-hour slot today. So I'm not going to spend too much time, and I'm going to hand the floor immediately over to Kirill to start the presentation. And then if you have any questions, of course, put them up in the chat box, and we'll try to answer as many questions as possible, either now or after the session. Thanks. Over to Kirill.
Thank you. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, colleagues from the team in Valencia and colleagues in UNGSC. As Jack said, we have prepared a few topics, and as discussed with Michael Dorn, we would cover a little bit of it every day now through the end of the week. And of course, we are or anything that you may wish to raise as we are here. So today we wanted to give you the broader context of the management reform, where the GAMPS is and what the key stakeholders and counterparts at the headquarters are. And also jointly with Virya, we would give you some high-level overview of the new elements of the delegation of authority. Then we'll follow with some briefing on policy development tomorrow. Then we'll look at some audit observations on Thursday, and we'll finish with the strategic guidance and the closing instructions on Friday. So if you allow me, I would like to share a presentation. Brian, do I need to request control? Yes.
Sure thing. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and yeah, request control, and I'll just say yes, and it's all yours. I'm also going to make sure if you're not a presenter, I'm going to add you as a presenter too. Okay. Kirill, so do you see the option to request control?
No.
All right. So let's give me one more second. I'm trying to find you in the list. Here you go. Okay, so I'm going to make you a presenter, and maybe like this you have the option to share your screen.
Yes, now I should have.
Perfect. Okay.
Let me know
there
if
you
you
go.
see
Okay.
the presentation.
Yes, we do.
Thank you, colleagues. So, as I said today, we would like to look into the management reform, and the topics we would like to cover are the key changes, stakeholders and counterparts, and we would briefly talk about the delegation of authority, which Virya would of course further expand and talk more tomorrow. What are the reference documents? And we will make sure that we share all these documents with you guys. First, this is the Secretary General's report on the shifting management paradigm that outlines the principles and the key changes in the management reform that was issued in March 2018. And the second document is the delegation of authority, the issued, promulgated through a Secretary General's bulletin in December 2018. These are the fundamental sort of documents that guide the key changes at headquarters. And why we want to start with this is to give you sort of a perspective. I'm sure that many of you might be aware, but what I personally encounter is often that some of the colleagues, especially the ones that are not frequently exposed to communicating with us in the headquarters, still do not have a clear link between names and faces, or who is who, and which office and department is doing what. So this is a very high level brief we wanted to offer to you. So within the management reform that was initiated through the Secretary General's report, the key changes are that the two departments that you used to know before, the DFS and DM, ceased to exist and transformed into the new departments, mainly the Department of Management, Strategy, Policy and Compliance, and the Department of Operational Support. The Department of Management, Strategy, Policy and Compliance is structured as shown here along the pillars of Office of Program Planning, Finance and Budget, Office of Human Resources, Business Transformation and Technology, Business Transformation and Accountability Division, and of course the Umoja and OICT. So we would briefly talk about some of these elements of the org chart, just to give you some more perspective. First, and I started just from the upper left corner, in the OPPFB, in our office, led by the controller, Mr. Chandru, the finance division was established, which is the division which used to be called the accounts division. And the finance division is the global lead on financial policy matter, and it is the one leading on corporate guidance, and who is leading on financial aspects in terms of assets, inventory, and preparation of financial statements, and interacting with the Board of Auditors. So we in GAMS work very closely with Finance Division, as we jointly with the finance colleagues are to ensure quality of the data on assets, equipment, and inventory. And many of you might be aware, we jointly with the Finance Division are working as we speak on approaching the year-end activities in the peacekeeping missions right now, but also later in the year we would engage with the Volume 1 entities, the SPM, and the other offices. The second division or entity we wanted to talk is the Field Operations Finance Division. This is the division we used to call Peacekeeping Finance Division in the past, prior to the management reform. Following or within the management reform, the division has expanded portfolio. It includes policies and and guiding the field operations, including peacekeeping and political missions, on budgeting and financial stewardship. But important thing to mention here is that within this division, the Secretary General has consolidated resources for property management from the former DFS and DM, and has established the Global Asset Management Policy Service. And we, as a service under the leadership of Jack, are now looking. One of our key activities and mandated activities, I would say, is to expand what we used to do in the peacekeeping and with the political missions, or what the former DM used to do with the offices away and regional commissions, to bring that together on a common platform so that we can extend both the policy and the monitoring in a single performance property management framework across all entities. So as we speak, we are dealing with bringing the offices away and regional commissions into the same performance framework as all peacekeeping missions. A completely and entirely new entity that was established within the DMSPC with effect from January 2019 is the Business Transformation and Accountability Division. This division is a new entity that was established to lead on transformational activities or initiatives of the organization, to monitor and ensure accountability systems. And one of the key elements it is dealing with is the monitoring and the rollout of the delegation of authority. And we will talk a little bit on that later. Here, I would just like to mention that our service as a subject matter service or subject matter office for property management, we are working very closely with the PTA on all issues related to delegation of authority and accountability framework that comes along with it. Then moving to the Department of Operational Support, the Department of Operational Support, most of the former DFS entities or offices remain there. And I would like to specifically highlight some of those divisions or services that I think would be important for interactions from the Global Service Center. First, would like to start with the Enabling and Outreach Service. This is the service where most of the colleagues who are formerly working in the property management area in DFS remained. This service, among issues related to outreach, dealing with vendors and things like that, retained a very key functional area of the end-to-end supply chain performance management. And I'm sure that some of you might have been exposed to the end-to-end performance issues related to reliability, responsiveness of the supply chain, and lately issues related to inventory turnover or days of supply, total cost of the supply chain, for which the Enabling and Outreach Service is the lead. The Enabling and Outreach Service is our key counterpart in DOS, with whom we work on the global performance issues and making sure that we bring together property management with supply chain warehousing aspects, along with financial requirements. Logistics division. I'm sure most of you have been interacting or have an idea of what logistics division is dealing with. These are the global transportation, supply chain planning, the various category management areas of engineering, medical, supply, transportation. So these strategic support and strategic sourcing aspects remain within the logistics division. And important element of logistics division is also the Umoja coordination service, thanks to whom you are benefiting, we are all benefiting from this training event. The colleagues in the training team in Valencia are part of the Umoja coordination service and part of logistics division. So needless to say, this is important counterpart and stakeholder with whom we work on a day-to-day basis. Last but not least, I wanted to say a few words about the Special Activities Division. This is a new entity that was established within the Department of Operational Support. And I think it is particularly critical in the context of mission reconfiguration and transition planning, specifically startups and liquidations, among other things, of course, but I would specifically like to mention the startups and liquidations, as also this training is aimed at developing and further enhancing the capacity of the UNGSC to deal with such issues and support mission transitions, starting up or liquidating, closing down. Our key coordination and key interactions with the Special Activities Division are taking place in the process of preparation, planning, execution, and then reporting on mission liquidations or startup. And this is very important, and I'm sure that colleagues Joe Kenny, Gianluca Avantagiato have interact very frequently with the colleagues in this division, as we do, and we engage with them, especially now during the planning for the transition of UNAMID. So these were the few points we wanted to make about the organizational context. And now, as we touched upon the business transformation and accountability division and new delegation of authority, we wanted to talk you through this on a high level, for which I pass the floor to Virya.
Thank you, Kirill. Thank you, and good morning, good afternoon, actually, everyone. Yes, we wanted to talk you through basically the delegation of authority and what the delegation of authority instrument has introduced with the rollout in 2019. This, of course, has introduced some changes in general, but also specifically to the property management delegation of authority. The delegation of authority has been issued in line with the management reform core principles, which are basically aligning the authorities with responsibility, decentralized decision making, and strengthening the accountability framework. And with the approach in mind for making decision making closer to the point of service delivery. So the changes in general. So it's delegation of authority is now issued directly by the Secretary General to the respective head of entity. And if you recall from the past, the delegation of authority was then delegated from the Secretary General to the, there was several passage to the USG DM at that time, then further delegated to SGOSS, and then further delegated to USG DFS, and further delegated to the Chief or Director of Mission Support. So now that passage has been eliminated, and directly the Secretary General delegates the authority to the head of entities. So the delegation of authority instruments covers 4 business areas: budget and finance, procurement, property management, and human resources. Regarding the delegation of property management, the authority for property management under the financial rule 105/20 and 21 for physical verification of property, as well as the authority for the disposal of property, which is covered under FRR 105/23 and 24, are covered under the delegation of authority for property management. So these ones are part of the delegation of the property management authority. The write-off for losses and for property, but also for other type of assets receivable included, is covered under 106/7, and this is governed under the delegation of authority for budget and finance, and that is a change from the past, which was covered by the property management. The disposal of land and fixed building is delegated to the USG DMSPC, and always require the review of the Headquarter Property Survey Board. What do we mean with that? So that delegation is not delegated to the head of entities, so it's delegated to the USG DMSPC. So any cases related to fixed building and land must be submitted to the USG DMSPC approval after being reviewed by the Headquarter Property Survey Board. The delegation of authority may be sub-delegated, and this is something that DFS was already availing, but it is now new for everybody else. So it's something that everybody can do. So it's can be sub-delegated from the head of entities to the chief and or director of mission support and administrations, and or to the property management officer. There is a mandatory requirement for sub-delegations, and this is basically for property management, is the completion of the property management training, which is provided in Inspira for property management managers. The delegation talks about compliance within the 6 months, and tomorrow we'll share with you something about that as well. The delegation of and sub-delegations are all managed through an online portal. That there is an online official portal which is basically administered by the office BTA, which Kirill has already mentioned their role. So that is done directly through the portal, and the acceptance also occur through the portal. Another important changes which we haven't actually put it up here, I just realized, is about the elimination of the dual review requirement for the board review. So cases for disposal of property that are submitted, that are to be submitted to the Headquarter Property Survey Board, don't have to be submitted any longer to the local property survey board if the head of entities or the delegated official with the delegated authority on property management assess that there is no longer a need in that case. So it's no longer a requirement. So this is basically the changes that we have seen in relation on property management. And as Kirill said, this is just an high-level introduction. We will go a little bit deeper tomorrow when we touch upon the property management policy framework and the upcoming changes. Thank you. Kirill, back to you.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you, Viria. Brian, I think we would like to stop here for now and see if there are any questions from the audience, either through the training during the day or related to what we were just presenting. And also being mindful that this is probably the end of the day in Brindisi and in Valencia.
Thank you, Kirill. Thank you, Maria and Jack. Thanks for the great presentation. Let's see. Everyone can listen and everyone can unmute themselves. If anybody has a question, feel free. Now is the time. I know, it's the end of the day. It's 4:30, but I'm sure we can pull in some extra minutes. So if anyone has a question, now is the time.
It's Joe here. Freddie, I noticed you didn't mention in your presentation 514. Was there a reason for that?
Viria,
go ahead.
Start?
Go ahead.
Joe, the reason why, and Viria, feel free to compliment or add. The reason why 514 is not mentioned in the context of delegation of authority is that the financial regulation is not actually included in is not subdelegated through the delegation instrument for property management. The delegation instrument specifically deals with the rules 10520 through 24. The regulation 514 is not really subdelegated through the delegation instrument. but it of course has a lot of implications in terms of planning of a mission drawdown and liquidation for peacekeeping, which is being actually factored in the policy documents that Virya is leading on the developments. And I believe that we can talk more about it tomorrow, but this is the basic reason why it's not included, because it's not really part of the delegation instrument. And we would leave this discussion for tomorrow if you agree.
Yes, thanks very much.
Okay, thank you to both of you. Anyone else that would like to use this time to ask a question, maybe clarify something on this presentation specifically? And if we don't need the participation of Jack, Kirill, or Vidya, let us know. So maybe we can call it a day. If it's more related to the training, if you would like to discuss something about the training, maybe we can tell them that we don't need them anymore and we can move on.
I mean, Brian, just to say that, of course, if there are any issues that arise during the training, or if anything gets sort of exposed as an area where there is a need for some procedural clarification, you can always send us an email or keep a track on that, so we can talk about it at the end of the day, tomorrow or the day after or on Friday.
Exactly. So yeah, I see that there's some comments in the chat too. So some reference to KPIs. So as we're going to be moving on, today is only day 2. We've been talking about fixing or finishing pending transactions, especially related to physical goods receipt, virtual goods receipt. We've seen some BI reports on that too. So I'm sure that as we go through on the week and we start compiling questions, anything that we can throw back at you guys in the afternoon, we will keep track of. So thank you, Kirill.
Yeah, one request, Brian. Maybe it's just me, but I don't have access to the chat. It says I'm not a team member. So for tomorrow, I'd like to. I think it would just be interesting just for us to see even what's going on in the chat that's not specifically related to us, but also, of course, so we can see the questions tomorrow. Thanks.
Absolutely, Jack. I will add you 3 to the only thing is we'll add you to the actual channel. So you may receive notifications in MS Teams that something's happening during the chat, because we don't only have conversations during the meetings, but we can continuously have them throughout the day. I don't think it's going to really interrupt much of your MS Teams application, but we'll add you to this while the training goes on, so you can see the chat as well.
Thanks much.
Guys, can I just make another comment, please, that maybe somebody could answer over the next few days while we're talking to the people in headquarters? It's in relation to the 2 services, one supply chain and one service delivery. And is it flexible in relation to what we do in warehousing and inventory between service delivery and supply chain, or are the roles specifically separated where one is supposed to do one element and the other side is supposed to do the second element? The reason I ask this is because in the last 2 missions we've been involved in liquidations, one in Liberia, the infighting, shall we say, between the supply chain and the service delivery caused an awful lot of problems. And in relation to Minijuice, as you know, most of the service delivery options are given to supply chain. So I just need to explain to everybody that whether these roles are set in cement, that service delivery people are obliged to do one part and then supply chain is obliged to do the second part. Thank you.
Joe, I can start by bringing a few points, and eventually we can go deeper into that tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, or I can share some documents. But in principle, the segregation and the mission support structures are governed by the guidance that was issued by the then USG DFS, Mr. Curry, in September 2018. 2017, I believe, where the structure was and this sort of granularity of the services and functions within service delivery and supply chain were described. And there, in that guidance, it was described or prescribed that the peacekeeping missions and political missions should start establishing the service delivery and supply chain services, and the supply chain was to focus on warehouse management along with property management, while the service delivery, including the inventory management and asset management, was to remain within the service delivery service. Now, the implementation of this guidance was intended to be over a period of 2 years, which is pretty much was pretty much to be completed by now. So yes, there is guidance that defines that the warehouse and warehouse management, including receiving and inspection and property disposal, is to be handled within supply chain service, while the inventory management and asset management as part of the technical sections is to be handled in the service delivery. But I would suggest I will share this guidance with you. And then if you have further questions or if you feel we need to talk more, we can discuss in one of the subsequent days.
Okay, thanks very much, Carol, for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, on that note, I've already added Kirill, Jack, and Vidya to the channel, so you guys should have access to the chat already. And for the rest of the days, you can have access to it as well. If there's nothing else to talk about right now, maybe we can call it a day. I know the half hour of your intervention is up. So let us know. I see some questions on KPIs, but I'm sure, well, not direct questions, but concerns on KPIs. I'm sure that as we go through the week, we'll have more clear concerns and we can formulate some questions for you during these 2 weeks, Kirill. So thank you.
Yeah, certainly. Please feel free, and we'll do our best to respond.
All right, then. Well, from my part, that's it. Unless anyone else wants to add something, we're all okay from this side.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, colleagues.
All right, Kirill. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirill.
Thanks, Kirill.
All right, so for the rest of the attendees, we can call it a day. Just remember to make sure that you guys fill in the survey for the afternoon session. I know this was a long day, a lot of information. Hope you guys were able to follow and are happy with the progress. We'll continue tomorrow, and we'll meet you guys again at 10 o'clock a.m. Okay, as soon as the recording is ready, I will send the recording of the link. I'm going to email you guys the exercises, the cover pages and the exercise, as well as the presentation Daniel has prepared for the BI reports that we have seen today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, colleagues. Have a good afternoon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, guys.